All right, folks, lovely to see you. We're going to go through a couple introductory slides and do some housekeeping, and then I will hand it over to Melanie. Okay, so please, if you please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. And on your screen name thing, if you can add your pronouns if you want, and your neighborhood council or organization is really helpful. And in the chat, also, please mention that and let us know what brought you here this evening. That would be really helpful. Our mission, I think, well, maybe not all of you know, so I'll say this just in case, is to advance sustainability and resilience across the city of LA through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. We have, I think, 4 right now, really active committees. These are the times that they typically meet, and we, they're open to any stakeholders in LA, so you're welcome to join us. And we also have a working group, which is not very active right now, but which we are working to revive on sustainability guidelines for developers. We are recording this meeting. Please do introduce yourselves in the chat. This will be a small and interactive group today, so please feel free to use the raise hand feature to participate and follow our community agreements, which we'll get to in a moment. And also, we really do try to make this valuable to everybody. So please do complete an evaluation. We'll provide a link in the chat a few times if we are on top of it. And we really do look at those and pay attention. So thank you in advance. This is what we're doing tonight. We're just getting through this really fast. Then we're going to hand it over to Melanie Winter, who is the director of the River Project here in Los Angeles. Then we're going to network, because we do have a nice small group and we're not in person, but it's nice to connect with each other. And then we're going to discuss NCSA's bylaws, which we haven't done in a long time. And I'm hoping we'll do it tonight and not do it again for a long time. Then we'll hear from the committees that we were just talking about and open it up to announcements from anybody. Once again, we will hope to collect those evaluations from you. Here are our community agreements. If you can turn on your camera, it's nice. It's a nice way to build community since we are virtual. Assume good intent, give people the benefit of the doubt, basically until proven otherwise, I guess. Demonstrate respect and appreciation. The way I think about it is kind of fake it till you make it. We love the chat. I actually love the chat, but we just want the chat to be connected to what we're talking about. We don't want any wild tangents because that's not really respectful to the conversation that's actually happening. Listen intently, step forward, and then also step back, meaning if you tend to be one of those really vocal people, maybe cut back a little and give space to somebody else and vice versa. If you're one of the people who tends to observe and not participate, maybe push yourself to chime in a little. Be concise, and of course, have fun, because none of this is going to happen if we're not having fun, in my opinion. Okay. So I want to briefly introduce our board members. I always forget to introduce myself as well as the rest of the board. I'm Lisa Hart. I am on the board of the NCSA. Charles, I know you're here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lisa. Charles Miller. I'm on the board as well. I'm a Palms resident and just recently elected back to the Palms Neighborhood Council.
Oh, cool.
So,
congratulations. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's great. Muriel, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm also a steering board member. I'm also the chair of the Transportation Committee, and I was formerly a board member and committee co-chair for the Echo Park Neighborhood Council.
And Muriel, can you please say something about the voting this evening?
Oh, and I'm going to be changing I'll be renaming you to non-voting, and so VM voting member and then NV non-voting. So don't change it back.
Thank you. Thank you, Muriel. And Chris.
Good evening, everybody. Chris Ahuja, board member, Sustainability Alliance, board member, Tarzana Neighborhood Council. And congratulations, Charles. Looking forward to having a good chat with everybody tonight.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Melanie Winter, who is here with her dog Blazy, who's very, very cute. And what was I gonna say? Is it Blazy or Maisie? Am I missing Blazy or Maisie's name?
It's Maisie.
Maisie. I don't know where I got Blazy. It's been too long in person. That's what happens. Melanie is one of the smartest people I know. And I know a lot of smart people. And she is really passionate and super knowledgeable about water. And she has brought a motion, she and the San Fernando Valley Climate Reality Project have brought a motion to us that's been supported by the advocacy committee. And now the advocacy committee is inviting the group to support this. So first she's gonna share a little bit about the background and what's going on, and then we will take a vote. So Melanie, the floor is yours.
Oh boy. All right, share screen. Let's see. See if I can do this right. It's been a while since I've given this. I think there's about, I'd say about 20% of the folks on the call, I think, have seen this presentation. So, enjoy again, I guess. For the rest of you who haven't, I'm going to walk you through how we got where we are. So this project began with a feasibility study to restore the Los Angeles River and the 5 tributaries that feed the river in the Sepulveda Basin. And for those of you who aren't Valley folks, Sepulveda Basin is that big open space where the 405 and the 101 come together. It's everything to the north and, or not everything, but it's to the north and west of that intersection of the 405 and the 101 at the base of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's 2,000 acres. It's owned by the federal government. It's operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as a flood management facility. There are a number of folks who lease property there, primarily the city of Los Angeles, both for recreation and for a water reclamation plant. I've been wanting to do this project for more than 20 years because it seemed to me that since it was a flood management facility, there was really no logical reason for channelizing all the waterways there. And 20 years ago, the Army Corps said that was, they were just sort of doing it out of habit. This is currently the only stretch of river that has no concrete on the sides or the bottom for about 1.25 miles, just upstream of Burbank Boulevard there, which is the line that crosses right before the dam. So this, again, it's the only stretch of river that has no armoring on it. And the Corps gave me the letter of no objection back at the turn of the century, and it took that long to get some funding to do the technical feasibility study. And I put together a good team, and now I have to advance my slide. Put together a really good team, including Balance Hydrologics, who are primarily fluvial geomorphologists. And we started by asking, the primary question here is, what does the water want to do on the site? What would the water do without us trying to control it? Water flowing across the landscape, given the geography and the geology, what would the water want to do here? So we're using these process-based design principles, looking to restore ecosystem function to the river, not just trying to do some architectural, let's pretty this up, right? We were also looking to find out how much more groundwater recharge would happen at the site if we were to take that approach. We'd been able to look at some tools with JPL, NASA JPL folks, and can see that incidental recharge happens there, but understood that if we were to do some floodplain reclamation and give the waterways some more room, we might increase that. And increasing our groundwater is a big goal for us here under climate change. We also understood that the dam was built before the valley was developed, and it is not sized to manage a large storm event well right now. And given what we've seen lately with the UC Irvine flood risk study, we know that downstream communities and surrounding communities have pretty significant flood risks. So we wanted to see what we could do to increase community protection and reduce flood risk. And of course, to integrate the needs of the surrounding communities. When a lot of the recreational facilities were built here, the community demographics were pretty significantly different. And then this is very close to the Santa Monica Mountains. So looking at what kind of habitat connectivity, biodiversity benefits we could get. And we know that wetlands and riparian areas in particular are pretty powerful workers when it comes to carbon sequestration. So that's what we were looking to do here. And this just shows you all the different kind of characteristics that the 5 tributaries and the river itself have as they flow through the basin. You've got everything from the full-on extreme, all concrete, low flow channel to no armoring at all, to all kinds of things in between. And here's some images of that. The top left is the full-on concrete low flow channel that many are familiar with. The one right below it is my favorite. It's an experimental gunite treatment. Gunite's what they use to make swimming pools with. And then below that is the area that has no armoring whatsoever. And then there's all kinds of different variations on a theme throughout the river and tributaries. We also looked at the current challenges on at the basin, increasing encampments, erosion, fires caused both by encampments and also by the model airplane field. And then the fact that they're planning to hold some Olympic events at the site. So we worked our stakeholder group, since this was, by the way, a very small grant, and we were doing this under COVID, our primary stakeholder group was the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee, which includes Sierra Club, California Native Plant Society, Audubon, and then also Friends of Los Angeles River, and members of City Council who oversee the area, County of Los Angeles, State, and Army Corps. So you've got a nice diverse-ish group. And we held a half-day design charrette asking folks for information on areas they thought needed attention, areas they thought we should avoid, strategies they thought might work. And we broke it into stakeholder groups and did some sketching and took a lot of notes. We also worked throughout the process with the Army Corps. They shared a lot of data with us. We met with them regularly, updating them on our findings, getting some feedback. And we also coordinated with Tina Calderon for Indigenous perspective throughout the process. So one of the things that is interesting about the basin is that it is an open recreation area along with it being flood detention. And when you have a restored floodplain, so you're restoring ecosystem function and you're getting rid of the armoring, you have different areas that are different degrees of wet during different periods of time, which means that throughout that floodplain area, it's not just a big area of land set aside to be a channelized means of throwing stormwater away. Most of the areas can be utilized in varying degrees throughout the year. And also the different parts of that floodplain going from the more wet riparian areas to the upland areas support different critters. And it's not something that we see in Los Angeles. So being able to create that in Los Angeles is really to be desired. So before I show you the technical stuff, these are the highlights. So we would be able to legitimately restore ecosystem function to 8 miles of river and tributaries, get at least 5 times more groundwater recharge during the sort of lower, more frequent rain events, a lot more than that in this last year's suite of storms. We get a 20% increase in flood storage capacity and 22 minutes additional flood attenuation. And that means time for dam managers to coordinate and for people downstream who may be at risk to plan and relocate themselves. And then you get water quality that it improves as it flows and spreads across the landscape. These things only happen when you restore geomorphic function to the waterways. You can't just, landscape design or architectural design your way into these values. So that's why centering geomorphic river restoration and having that expertise is a critical component to planning in the basin. So here's the fun technical modeling. Across the top, you'll see the existing condition in the basin. Across the bottom, you'll see how the water would flow under the proposed condition. So right now, for those familiar with what happens when it rains, you can see these are model run times from about 3 hours and 45 minutes to 5.5 hours. And in the middle there is about when the flows start to break out at Burbank Boulevard and the gates go down and things are closed and you can't access the basin for a period of time. Under our proposed condition, that doesn't happen. We'd still close the basin, I expect, at a period of time, but you're not getting flows breaking out. And you can see that the water is spreading itself across more of the basin, which in and of itself is very good for habitat, and it also helps to reduce fire risk over time. More soil moisture across more of the basin is a better condition. I'm sure you know some of the feedback loops on desiccated soils. Having landscapes that are nourished more frequently across a wider area is beneficial for the region. So this is the beginnings of it. And you're getting the water spreading across soils that are infiltrating. So on the top left, you can see there's very little water flowing across the landscape, but there's terrific soils where that water can be infiltrating if it wasn't prevented from doing so by the channelization. So opening that up is really key to slowing and spreading out the water and getting it to the groundwater basin. When you get through this as well, you're not going to have the breakouts at Balboa. And then at the very end, the one at the top is, one at the bottom, on the bottom right, is 22 minutes later than the one at the top. Both of them show this is the full extent of the dam before releases have to happen. So that's where you can see you get 22 minutes more time. And you can also perceive that there's more water overall on the site. While the footprint isn't significantly different, there is a volumetrically more water being detained and then a lot of that infiltrated than otherwise. And this is important when you look at what we know now from the UC Irvine study about flood risk. So these areas that I'm showing you here, the orange is when you've got water above your head, above 6 feet. And then the yellow is a little lower than that. The dark blue, you've got above your waist, the dark blue areas, and then the lighter blues are, you're at your knees. So you can see that in some residential areas surrounding the basin, and certainly downstream of the basin, there are breakout flows under the current condition. So the dam is not managing for a 100-year event. And we want to make it do that. Our project would reduce those areas of risk, both surrounding and downstream of the basin. And this is the digital elevation model of what the footprint of the restored waterways would look like as it goes to the basin. And if you keep that in your head for a second and overlay that with the current conditions, you can see that there would be some changes would have to be made to the existing recreational footprint. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to lose any of the recreational amenities on the site. So we looked at and listed out how many of each kind of field there are, fields, acres of all the different kind of recreational uses on site. And we also looked at how the characteristics of the valley have changed since a lot of these leases were put in place. And you can see that the surrounding communities are classified as disadvantaged communities or severely impacted in the Callan-Byros green rankings for a wide variety of reasons. So we felt pretty comfortable making some simple changes. And I'm going to back up a second and show you this again. So the largest use on site is golf. And this whole area down here is 2 18-hole golf courses. There's another one up here. And there happens to be another golf course right across, just north of Victory, across the street. So in this community, the primary recreational amenity provided is golf. And we just didn't feel that if you had a blank slate today and you asked the community what they wanted, we don't think that's what you would get the most votes for. So we felt pretty comfortable. And after hearing also from several electeds who were considering the basin, there was a pretty wide consensus that at some point in the next handful of years, that was the golf course percentage there was likely to change. So what we proposed was going from 3 18-hole golf courses to 1 18-hole, 1 9-hole, and 1 6-hole. That's the only kind of recreational use that was impacted in the negative way, or in the less sort of footprint way. Everything else either stays the same or is pretty significantly increased. The trail miles, it was very important for us to propose a pretty significant increase in trail miles because it's not just access, but it's also safety. Soccer fields have increased because we know that there is a Prop K funded project to add soccer fields, and we know that's always in demand. Baseball and softball fields, there's more room for them. There's more room for playground spaces, and there's more room for more dog park areas as well. And even after that, there's plenty of space that's unprogrammed in our conceptual design that's left to accommodate proposed Olympic events or other stakeholder identified facilities. The proposed aquatic facility, pickleball, homeless services, cultural amenities, all kinds of things. There's still space to include. And this is what it looks like. And bear in mind, this is, like I said, it's a 2,000-acre site. And that's about 2.5 times as large as Central Park. So there's a lot of space here to do a lot of things. But I'll talk you from the top to the bottom. Top left, that's White Oak and Victory. And the boating program is active in the basin and could be even more enjoyable in a non-channelized situation. So we've put a kayak launch and boathouse there that can be there year-round and then open and useful during the non-rainy season. We're proposing removing that concrete armoring between White Oak and the Orange Line crossing there. We've more evenly distributed some of the urban agriculture that's on site. So we haven't reduced the acreage devoted to urban agriculture, but we have proposed distributing it throughout the site a bit more. Urban ag lands are all south now. We've moved some of it up to the north so that communities to the north can have access. Possibly some more community gardens up to the north. We are really paying attention to changes at the Orange Line stops at both Balboa and Woodley, because as they currently exist, they don't really relate to the basin, and they absolutely should. You'll notice there's bridge crossings, a number of bridge crossings over the river and over different tributaries, so you can move more freely through the site, particularly on foot or on bike or on any kind of personal wheels that you like. We've integrated the golf into the floodplain down here. This is a trend that's happening globally, where a lot of golf courses are moving towards, excuse me, more locally indigenous landscaping, and resulting in more interesting play as well. We've moved sports fields around a bit. Some of them are also integrated in the floodplain. Big things that we've done, the two big, huge things that we've done is we've relocated the existing model airplane field away from the core part of the park area, so it doesn't break up the flow as much. And we've moved it down here between Burbank and the dam. It's got the same acreage, same fly space, it's just not putting the rest of the areas at risk. The Corps likes to have that area behind the dam pretty well mowed down, and that also can reduce fire risk from accidents from the model airplane field if it's managed in the way that the Corps wants it managed. The other big thing that we've done is we looked at the traffic on Balboa, we looked at the traffic on Woodley, and it's much less on Woodley than on Balboa. And we know that a portion of that traffic is folks either going to work at the Stillman Water Reclamation Plant or visiting the wildlife area. So what we've done is we've closed Woodley in the center. So you can still access it from both Burbank and Victory, but it's not a pass-through anymore. And it creates more park space. And right there in the heart, we've created a central green that would be sort of like the Great Lawn or the Sheep Meadow in Central Park in New York. We've very much protected the wildlife reserve throughout this as well, but we've also created several cultural facilities. As those of you who know the basin know that there aren't really designated cultural space in the basin or facilities. And so we're looking at, there's a big, huge area up here by Woodley that is the historic monument of the, oh gosh, brain just died. The bomb, the Glenn, help me out. My brain just died. Nike Air Missile Site. It's the launch, one of the launch points for the Nike Air Missile. And it's really just a big, huge, massive set of parking lots and a couple of buildings, but parking lots with weeds growing through it, unutilized. So having a cultural facility right off the Woodley grand entrance is one thing for cultural use here. Another one right in the center, we're both setting aside space for traditional use for the indigenous communities and making it sort of the heart of the river cultural space. Sepulveda Basin is just to the north of one of the major primary nodes, villages, Sitkanga. So this is building that in here and providing space for folks to gather and practice makes a lot of sense to us, and also a space that can be educational for others. There's potential for a botanic garden. There's still a lot of space that's unprogrammed, as you can see throughout the site, particularly space that's planned for Olympic events and other things. So there's still lots of room, lots of wiggle room to include things. Most of the existing rec facilities here haven't really altered very much. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, we really want to make this a place that you don't need a car. Central Park, you don't need a car to get around. Golden Gate Park, you don't need a car to get around. There's certainly still the option of driving, but it's not the only way, which currently it pretty much is, unless you're just recreational using the bike path. It's not how most people will get from one use to another. So we wanted to make that more possible, given that there are two Orange Line stops here, and that the 405 Sepulveda Pass line is also going to make this very accessible to folks from the west side pretty quickly. This would transform the basin pretty significantly and would lend itself towards a different management structure. Those folks who spend time in the basin and who look out for the basin know how difficult it is to get management in the basin. This becoming something this important and high profile and really kind of putting the valley on the map in the process can lend itself towards a different structure of management, something more along the lines of the Central Park Conservancy. And so that's sort of the long-range vision for this. But the big, huge takeaways here are the climate adaptation in terms of building local water supply, in terms of significantly improving flood protection, in terms of potential for this to be connected through Encino Creek up in the Santa Monica Mountains and habitat corridors, the biodiversity, the carbon sequestration. Yeah. Where's my thing? There it is.
Okay, so I'm a little anxious about time, which is often the case.
Yep.
So I'm hoping you can talk about the current state, like the motion and what we're looking at voting on this evening, if now isn't okay to start transitioning.
That now is fine. So there's your long list of all the good things that you get if you center river restoration, geomorphic river restoration in your planning for this. And so we've been trying to get the city to get on board with taking this approach. There are some folks who prefer to focus on a smaller number of projects in the basin. And so we, after presenting this to a lot of folks, we started gathering supporters and signatures and organizations to join us in creating a resolution about the basin. We want these things centered. There. And here's the city's vision for this is none of that. The city is moving forward with, and many of you have probably been invited to these, a planning process that is focusing on those soccer facilities and the swim facility, and then completing the already designed Yellow River bike path on the existing channelized river system. Everything else on the table would be put into a conceptual plan for maybe later in the future in the 30s sometime. But mostly it's just get those two facilities done and help the Olympics happen. And the way that they want to help the Olympics happen is to negotiate a new lease with the Army Corps, which is really the driving purpose behind the city's effort. But it's a lot of community meetings, talking about vision and talking about all good things, and we really care. But the big takeaways are renegotiation of a lease, which gives them an edge over anybody else's concerns in the basin before the Corps' master plan is opened up again, and then the three recreational facilities. So we got support from Councilmember Rahman with a motion that basically took the resolution that we had shared with everybody and everybody signed on to.
And I want to interrupt and say we signed on to that as
Yes.
the MPSA. You folks that came through the advocacy committee, and that was one of the votes we did via email. Just so
Yeah,
you
and
know.
I'll drop that resolution in the chat as soon as I'm done. So they took the resolution and crafted a motion that included a lot of the points in the resolution and brought it to council. That was sent to 3 committees. The first committee it went to, it was tabled by John Lee, who said that acting on it would disenfranchise CD6, and that he heard that this other plan would reduce recreational opportunities. So it's not gone to another committee yet. I don't know that it ever will. Maybe that'll change. There's also a state bill, a Senate bill, Henry Stern has put forward, that is trying to lean into nature-based solutions and ecosystem restoration of the waterways, and sort of saying that we have state funds that we would be happy to lend to this if you want to do the right thing. So those are the 2 avenues that local and state government are weighing in. We have, for the past more than a year and a half now, heard from many state and federal agencies who are interested in funding our work because it meets the criteria in Justice 40 and many of the state's climate priorities. The city's project, not so much. But we have to wait until the city, and primarily the mayor, decides to take a position on this and decides to work with the Army Corps. The Army Corps is an interesting partner because they now have an Engineering with Nature program, and the Southern Pacific Division could make this a priority project if the city were willing. So that's where we're at.
All right, I'm sure we have, I have a lot of questions and I'm sure there are others. Can you take down your the screen, Melanie?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then let's open it up for comments or questions. And I'm hoping that we're gonna have it voted by 7:30, so you folks know. So if I seem a little taskmastery, that's why. Okay, Joanne, go for it.
Mute. Okay. When I went to the meeting that was held in February for the Sepulveda Basin, I was talking to one of the representatives from the city, and she said that the project that you are proposing would actually flood quite a few trees, including oak trees. And I wondered if you could please clarify what the effect of the changing in the floodplain would do to the trees, existing trees.
Yeah. One of the things that we, like I said, this was a very small grant. So we didn't have the wherewithal to do the fuller analysis of impacts to trees in the floodplain. But the process-based restoration is not something where you go in and you just bulldoze stuff. And I'm sure there are trees. I don't know that there are a lot of oaks in the way, but I know there are some trees that would probably go back into the floodplain as others came up. There would be an increase in the overall number of trees, a lot more willows in the floodplain than there currently are now. But there's absolutely no way to restore a floodplain at that site without there being some changes to the trees that are there currently and the trees that would be there in the future. One of the things we were most concerned about was the math on carbon. So we really didn't want to in any way propose something that was going to remove trees that were having carbon sequestration value. And if some trees were going to be lost, have them buried so we didn't lose the carbon into the floodplain. And being able to do that math is something that's part of our phase 2. But it looks from what we can see that it would still going to be in the positive.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get our voting ready. Glenn, go ahead.
So I guess this should be construed as comments in support of Melanie's proposal and the Raman motion, but I just want to make a couple of comments based on my experience as I hate to say it, but almost mid-70s, so whatever the math is, a long time involved with the basin. First of all, keep in mind where this started from. This vision process and the city's effort to obtain money for what they're doing came from the same person who started a political crisis in the city. So Noreen Martinez has never really been a friend. When she first came into office, the Wildlife Committee basically were fighting with her deputy over issues dealing just something as simple as the Sepulveda Basin. So consider the source of the initial motion. And also from my experience over the years, the city's planning process is simply, we've got money, we, from whatever source, from proposition or federal, whatever, and we're going to do planning based on the fact we got money in hand, especially other people's money. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that the basin is 2,150 acres of federal ownership, second largest open space after Griffith Park of under city control. The renegotiated lease that anyway impacts the master plan that the community worked really hard to get some protections in there is of concern. Basically, I have absolutely zero interest. There's no benefit to the basin to have anything associated with the Olympics in the basin. And that was the case in 1984 when the city proposed damming up the LA River to put a rowing channel, this same stretch of the LA River. So anything that they want to do, I suppose there may be a couple of temporary things that may not have significant impact, but I just don't trust them. What they say is temporary. I doubt it will be. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Glenn. And I'll just say, I keep saying 2,000 because we didn't include the other 150 that's south of Burbank Boulevard. So, but you're absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Isabel.
I have a comment and a question. My comment is, as a member of CFAC, I would fully support the removal of oak trees for some riparian trees, which are so rare and hard to find in the city. I guess my question is, when I saw the city present their project, there wasn't really a project there. It was just a, what do you guys want? This is what we're hearing. It was very recently. It was only 3 weeks ago when they presented to the biodiversity expert council. So I'm wondering what the difference is between what you're saying, Melanie, they're proposing, and what I heard them propose. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, I should have said the graphic that I showed you was from the TOS, which is like an RFP. So when the city put out their RFP for consultants to do this job that Geosyntec and Olin and all those are now doing, that was the graphic that was included to let folks know this is the scope of work of what we're interested in. Here's where everything is in the basin. Primarily, we want the soccer fields done, we want the aquatic facility done, we want the bike path completed, and we want a new lease. But they said, here are the other things that you could put into the sometime after 2035, the vision, the conceptual plan. Here's other things to consider. If the community brings them up, then we're all for it. Put it in the future somewhere. But the graphic that I showed is from the city, from their scope of work, from the TOS.
Okay, Pat. Oh, Pat. Isabel, you're done? Is that good?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm really sorry. I'm being so rude. My computer's dead, so I'm using my phone, and I'm sorry if it's not very.
No, you're good. Totally good.
Did I answer all your questions though, Isabel?
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder why they're actually asking us what we want when they have no intention of, are they fishing? Or are they asking us to say we want more soccer fields? I mean.
No, they know that they're going to they have a Prop K allocation for soccer and for the swim facility, so they know they're going to do it. But what they're supposed to do these days is do community engagement, so you can say that the community wants what you're going to build. So this is them doing community outreach and having you put stickies and answer loaded questionnaires and surveys so that they can say that this is what the community wants. They're checking their boxes on outreach.
Thanks.
Pat, go ahead.
Just to amplify on can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, to amplify on Isabel's point, they're having us do sticky things and stuff. There are things that they say are cast in concrete happening there. For example, the bike path that apparently routes through the dog park and terminates over by Balboa. It's not shown on the maps. They're not showing us things they've already planned. They're not telling us about it. The reason that we at Encino NC and the basin is our area, we're so ticked off to begin with when this vision plan was proposed. Excuse me, I get very excited. The reason was I called their office and I said, exactly what underutilized areas are you talking about? And they would not return my call. I don't know if it's the wildlife area they want to turn into cement. They wouldn't tell us anything. So, finally basically we were told nothing till all of a sudden we hear that the contract with Geosyntec is going to a hearing. But I will quit ranting and say, I agree we need a very, very strong park advisory committee. The basin cannot continue to be CD6 or whatever happens with the next redistricting, it can't be their playground. This is a large regional asset. It needs input from all the players involved. And I will guarantee you there's about 60 different agencies and nonprofits involved in that. And we need a strong park advisory committee approaching something like the Central Park Conservancy. As far as the motion, it's good. I do not agree with either plan. Both plans assumed that Tapia Farms was going to be removed. I think there's going to be a lot of community objection to that. And that was apparently in a city plan that is really going nowhere. And also in the river plan. And, you know, that it could be left there, and the model airplane field, for example, could be put north of Lake Balboa. So I do not want to support the exact location of things in any plan, but I certainly support the geomorphic restoration there, because if that isn't done, I will be wading to my house if we have a 100-year flood. And, you know, we will be losing a lot of property then. So that's my opinion. So I will support it. But, you know, I also have a lot of questions and a lot of reservations.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and thanks for all that, Pat. I mean, I know, you know, Glenn especially, and Pat also have just spent many, many years and know the basin very, very well. And I want to just remind you that the Geosyntec team has spent probably, I don't know, more than 10 times more than we spent on all of our work just in the last couple of months. And ours is definitely conceptual. The thing that we feel strongly about is the base underlying geomorphic footprint of restored waterways. The rest of the pieces, it really requires our ability to have full engagement with basin users and stakeholders there. And, you know, we have proposals for our phase 2 and what the both technical and scientific research and the deep community engagement that needs to happen in determining all that. We have nothing against Tapia. I think Tapia should stay. So ours isn't like this is set in stone. It just requires a lot more resources and a lot more conversations than we were able to have for $160,000. But I also will say that the bike path, when I mentioned the bike path to Councilor Blumenfeld, they were like, well, but we already designed that bike path. I'm like, yeah. And, you know, we'll still have bikeways through the basin. It's just not that design. Well, but we spent the money on that design. So we got to do it. I'm like, but flood risk, water supply. Well, but we did it already, which I think is just not the kind of mindset you want in a leader, but that's just me.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it off after Delilah and Chris, and then I'm gonna pull up the motion and ask, I hope Melanie, you can walk us through it a little bit, and then I'm gonna hope that we are ready to vote. Delilah, go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Delilah Boomer, and I'm a freelance reporter at the Los Angeles Daily News. I'm covering this plan and kind of the broader context of different plans with the Sepulveda Basin in its future. So I know that this is more of the earlier stages of a plan and more of a, you know, vision study type thing. I just am curious if there's any sort of cost estimate at this point for how much, if everything was implemented, how much it would cost. If not, I understand, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, we don't have a cost estimate we can stand behind right now. We know, like, we costed out a phase 2, and there would have to be other phases there. But we do know that given the resources that are available now, which is a very unusual circumstance, the kind of funding we have available from both the state for climate adaptation, water supply, flood risk reduction, habitat biodiversity, 30 by 30, and on, as well as the federal Justice 40 priorities, that there's more money available to do this kind of work than there ever has been at any time in our history. And that that is pretty amazing. And I think when you compare that to the kind of money that is being asked for the regional water recycling program, it pales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris,
Yeah, just real quick. Can you elaborate quickly? You said taking away the option, taking it away for autos in terms of the ability to drive through the park. Can you just kind of elaborate or clarify that?
Yeah, right now that pretty much is your only option. Unless you're a cyclist, most people don't access the other recreational amenities in the basin by any other means than car. It's very hard to get, if you want to do more than one sort of activity in a day, you have to go and find parking and then drive again to another place in the basin to find parking. So that is the only way you get around. We wanted to make the basin more primarily accessible to multimodal users, not completely eliminate the ability for cars to get on site, but not make them the primary way in which folks access the facility. There are bus stops nearby. There's the Orange Line right there. So making this something that people all over the city can get to and get around without having to use an auto was definitely top of mind for us.
And then just a separate thing, just the Olympics were mentioned a lot. And I think, maybe I take it the wrong way, but, this is for the city. This is for the people of the city, not necessarily for the Olympics, just as a side note. But thank you.
Oh, yeah, this is, we're not doing this for the Olympics. We're just showing that you can do all these things without making some Olympic events impossible. This is not a barrier to some no-build Olympic events happening in the basin, but it's not, nor is it dependent on it. This is adding value to everybody in the region for long-term and not just one summer.
I'm a softie, so Miriam, go ahead.
Hey, oh, you cannot move the video. Okay. You can hit okay on that.
I can hear you.
All right. I learn so much when I tune into a new group like this. I had no idea that this feasibility plan was in existence. And I'm glad that so many people have their eyes on it. Of course, we are against the bike path, and we have our own thing going there. But I would like to say that we are in CD6. We have had a vacant seat, and I don't support this motion with a vacant seat. I don't think that Bob Bloomingfield or Nikia Raymond they don't respond if we call them. They say you're not in our district. So why do we have a motion like this overseeing the basin that includes the dog park? And it's not. I really appreciate overseeing the environment. I do, but this is filled with transportation stuff. I saw the other day that someone suggested shutting down Balboa Boulevard, which would kill Lake Balboa. You know how long it takes you to get from the 101 to Victory during rush hour? Over half an hour. There's no. So, I hear crazy things like kayak boathouse. This is the first I've heard of that. So I would like to be supported as a constituent of CD6 and hold off on this motion until we have representation. And I'm not against the bike path. I'm against rerouting it from the south to the north, or I'm for rerouting it from the north to the south. So anyone else have something to say?
Well, I'll just respond. I'll just
Go-
respond really quickly.
Yes,
and-
thank you.
And just say thanks. I appreciate that. We're not proposing closing Balboa.
No,
But
no, no, it's
I
just
think
that.
I think it's important to recognize that this is a regional amenity and it's not just for residents of CD6. In fact, it's more applicable to many residents of CD4 and CD3 and others than it is to many residents of CD6. So it is a regional amenity, and it's not simply up to constituents of CD6 what to do with the basin. So that's something to consider.
I'm not saying that it is. I am saying that we have had a vacant seat and that we've been told about a lot of people, by a lot of people, we don't represent you. When we want to talk
Sure.
to someone about something happening in the basin that we don't
Sure.
really care for. So you can't say, oh, you know, it concerns a lot of people. That, yeah, a lot of people want a piece of the basin. Nuri wanted a piece of the basin. That's why she kept it. And she wasn't the best steward of it.
Correct.
But you know, but right now, we don't feel like we have any steward. And I think for you all to vote for this motion takes us even further away from that.
Well, Miriam, I'll just say, read the motion so that you understand
I have.
what's being discussed.
I have.
Miriam, I'm sorry, but very, very, very briefly, who is we? I should have asked you to introduce yourself. You just have.
We're the Friends of the Sepulveda Basin Off-Leash Dog Park.
Let's say that again.
We're the Friends of the Sepulveda Basin Off-Leash Dog Park.
Off
We're
leash.
nonprofit since 2015.
Okay, helpful to know. I wasn't even aware of that group, so that's, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's super fast go through this motion. I hope most of you have taken a look at it already. Melanie, would you be able to sort of walk us through it?
Sure.
Just the therefore parts. not
Yeah,
the
the therefore
stuff.
parts are basically they're echoing a lot of what was in the resolution that I shared in the chat that 80 organizations signed on to, including NCSA. And this is saying, we would like for you to use the work that was done in the analysis of our study. We want to make sure that the attachment 5 it's referencing there, which is the graphic I showed you from the cities, is flexible, not set in stone, and the people can actually have some influence on it. They want to ensure that it improves access and mobility throughout the basin, that it centers nature-based solutions and fluvial geomorphology, which is legitimate river restoration to mitigate climate change and restore ecosystem functions to the river and tributaries, optimizes floodplains for groundwater recharge for our local water supplies and buffering against drought and fire, increases retention capacity to improve flood risk reduction, expands wildlife habitat and biodiversity in the basin, elevates multimodal transit, and also proposes strategies to protect affordability and the social fabric of the surrounding communities, which is a big legitimate fear of folks as the Olympics and plans with the Olympics going forward. If you don't build that in up front, there can be a lot of issues later. Incorporates Indigenous stewardship principles through inclusive consultation, and makes sure that all these things are prioritized in preparation before the Olympics. That's the main thing. And then they just wanted to get some report backs on other things that might need to happen. And they wanted to engage other departments in this. It was mostly Bureau of Engineering. They wanted to bring in some other folks, including more participation from Rec and Parks. And I'll also note that the technical advisory committee that the city has includes the Los Angeles World Airports, but did not include the biodiversity, the city biodiversity folks, which was just weird. So anyway, that's the city motion that's out there.
I had thought, I think it's this one is also a pretty big deal. Isn't this one important? Can you see my little cursor?
And the second, that stat, yeah, right.
Can you say one more sentence or two about that one, please, if I'm correct?
Yeah, so the first bullet there is basically saying you need to be transparent about the status of these projects that are listed in task 5, which is the soccer, the swim facility, the bike path, and the other things that are
I
listed.
see.
Including which, might be shifted around from what you're laying out based on stakeholder input. And then we want recommendations for, how do we get an actual topographic survey and geotechnical studies and groundwater, taking the stuff that we say is key for our phase 2, because these are not the kind of things that they would be really looking to do. So we were looking to tease that out of them some more.
Okay, that's super helpful for me.
Mhm.
I think we're ready for a vote. I hope we're ready for a vote. Does anybody disagree? Carol, did you want to say something? Go ahead and go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had to find my unmute button. I just wanted to say, out of respect to Miriam, and I see all those friends out there who, like many of us, are dog lovers. I do respect your perspective, your point of view. At the same time, I've been on a neighborhood council for 10 years now, and whatever feedback we give to the city council, it is very rarely ever acted upon instantly. They will kick it around and give it to different committees, and this could be years in the making, couldn't it, Lisa? I mean,
Don't ask me.
multiphasic, this is multiphasic, this is going to take so long. So you will definitely, I believe, Miriam, you will have representation long before anything actually is done on this.
Yeah.
We're just providing our perspective at this point in time. And the great thing about a community impact statement or a letter like this, anything that we submit, is that as things change and continue to grow and develop, we can submit additional comments. We can alter our perspective and our point of view. And I've literally just finished taking former Vice President Al Gore's newest training about the ERA and the BIL, which are legislative pieces that are going to provide a great deal of money for helping with sustainability and resilience and building back up a more natural environment to help us cool this planet down. And so there will be money out there, but none of this is happening within the next month or two. This is all many, many months, if not years of planning. Is
Okay.
that an accurate statement, Melanie?
Yes, that is accurate.
I would like to say a park advisory board, I think is a wonderful idea.
That's a great idea.
That the things will take a while, then wait a couple of months. You can wait on this. Wait and have the input of the new council person. That's what I think is fair.
So I think I'm just going to say one thing. I think that's a little bit of a red herring because we are going to wait. John Lee has said we're going to wait, and it's only a couple of months. Is it 2-3 months? 2. So it's not very long. The other thing is the way we work actually is a little bit the opposite, Miriam. We weigh in on things so that our city council folks know how the folks they're representing think about things. So we vote, yeah, like Joanne just wrote, this is our position and we want our representatives we want to represent us to know our position. So that's how we always are weighing in before folks are voting. Otherwise, there's no point in voting, if that makes sense. Okay, so Muriel, I'm going to hand it over to you.
You say Miriam or
Oh.
Muriel?
Muriel. If I don't know what I said, but in my mind, I heard Muriel. So apologies if there was an M instead of an L or whatever.
That's technically like my Starbucks name. They always get it wrong, but I'll take it. Okay, I'll start with Lisa.
Yes.
Okay. I vote yes. Charles Miller.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chris Ahuja.
Yes.
Thank you. Carol Hart.
For the reasons previously stated, it will take a while. I am voting yes.
Thank you. Alvin Waters.
Yes.
Thank you. Isabel. Okay. Okay. Charlene.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, how fun. Nish.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Leonel.
Oh, very briefly, I was falling asleep. Is this gonna protect the bike lane and protect the trees and the environment? No more land development, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I vote yes. If it's pro environment, pro bike path, pro trees, yes, yes.
Thank
Stay
you.
awake.
Okay. Pat Bates.
With reservations stated, absolutely yes.
Okay. Melanie Winter.
Yes.
Thank you. Polly Estabrook.
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne
Yes.
D'Antonio. Thank you.
Yes.
Sandeep. I hope I'm not.
Yes.
Thank you. Kathy Schreiner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Emmanuel Alcandar.
Yes.
Thank you. John Hales.
Abstain.
Okay, abstain. Ji Young.
Yes.
Thank you. And that makes
Isabella's
well,
back. Isabella's
Isabel.
back.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I said yes. You obviously did not
Oh.
hear me. I was muted, but yes, I vote yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So that makes
Didn't call my
7
name.
I'm sorry.
Didn't call
Glenn,
Glenn
forgot
Bailey.
Glenn.
Oh, Glenn. Goodness gracious. Why didn't I write? Oh, goodness. Okay, sorry, Glenn.
Yeah, as long as the Olympics are not a Trojan horse, yes.
Thank you. Okay, that makes 18 yeses and 2 abstains. So the motion passes. I
Okay.
guess.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for your support. Go ahead, Carol, and then we're going to move into a networking session for about 20 minutes. Carol, go ahead.
I really do care about Miriam and her friends. And so can we perhaps make an agreement that we'll come back to this and we'll continue to discuss this in future meetings so that we do take into account the needs and concerns of the people that are to the east of the 405 freeway.
Absolutely.
That's
And for,
what's fair.
You know,
for those of you who, Miriam, I don't know if you know this, but last month we hosted a candidate forum for the CD6 race. So we've invested quite a bit of energy in that region, just so you know.
right, but you just voted for the bike path going through the park. Like he said, does this support the bike path? Yes. It's verbiage in here and it's not environmental verbiage. It is a bike path that a community does not want.
That's not what was
Guys.
in the motion.
Pardon me?
That's not what was in the motion, no.
Correct. Thank you. Melanie, can you say it? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
what the bike path that's in the city plan is something that's been designed and that you are having issues with. Our proposal does not dictate where the bike path goes at this point in time. It's really dependent on more community input.
So I think there might have been a little confusion because we are talking about different plans out there. I hope that makes sense.
Maybe I stand corrected, but we're fighting this, and until it's built, we don't think it's a done deal. And we're looking.
Absolutely.
Forward.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And
I will
yes,
be
we'll have
back,
to
honest to God, I want to be involved and I want to help. And I want to see it done right. So, and I love the idea of park advisory board. And I would like to be involved.
And please do complete that survey that I put into the chat and distribute it also through your networks. They're talking about
Vision
leaving that.
plan?
I'm
The vision-
sorry?
Is that the vision plan?
Yes, it's put out by
I've
the
been
city
circulating
and their,
that for months. I'm meeting with them this week.
Great.
So, you know, yeah. So thanks for the heads up.
yes. And so, and we'll talk about this towards the end of the meeting, but the NCSA is represented on the LA 28 Sustainability Working Group. So through this body, we're actually one of not very many people on that group, or organizations on that group, in that group. So, you know, so that I'm saying that because I want you to know that it is, I think it's because I'm not a representative on that group. In my mind, it's my job to represent what I'm hearing from you folks. And the Sepulveda Basin, as we mentioned, is one of the topics. So we always want to hear from you, and it's my job to bring that back to the Sustainability Working Group, just so you know.
Great, great.
Okay, so we've been wanting to do this for a while, and we rarely have time, and tonight we do. So for about 20 minutes, I'm going to break you folks into small ish groups and let you folks talk with each other and get to know each other just for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll come back here and maybe have a larger group conversation. And then we will talk about our bylaws. Some of you who are just interested in our content might not care about our bylaws, but if you're interested in our process, you can stay for the bylaws piece. And please do stay at the very least for the networking piece, because we are still doing most things via Zoom, and it is a little harder to get to know each other. So I have one question for you that I'll try to put in the chat, but the gist is share what your neighborhood council or neighborhood, if you're not part of a neighborhood council, you can talk about your organization or your neighborhood or just you or your house or whatever, is doing or could do or wants to do or is thinking about doing or having trouble doing or wants help or advice doing connected to sustainability. So the idea is that one of the parts of our mission statement is sharing best practices and, you know, really building up community action. So some of you folks are doing amazing, amazing stuff through your neighborhood council or other vehicles. Some of you folks are struggling more. So let's make sure we're all talking to each other and we know what's working and we know what isn't, and we're able to share suggestions and support each other as we're doing this at the very hyper local level. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm getting some nods. Thank you. Good. That's helpful. Lastly, I'll say we don't have any assigned facilitators or anything. I think your groups will be like, I don't know, between 4 and 6 people probably. So just jump in, introduce yourselves, and then talk about things you're working on or have succeeded with or having trouble with or need help with. Okay, I will set up the groups and we'll see you in a little bit.
Lisa, just as people are filing out, this is Delilah. I just wanted to get one more clarification from you, if that's okay.
You can try. I'm not really the expert Melanie is, but you can try me.
Okay, this is, I think you can probably give me, but if you can't, that's okay. It's just, so this vote is the, is just taking a position on what you all believe the city council should do, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. I was
And
going
it's
to make sure to have that clear.
Right. So, I mean, but the city, it gets a little more complicated than that because the city council in that motion is asking the city to do stuff, right? It has requests of several departments, but we're asking the city to ask or tell, a little bit of both, I guess, city departments to do certain things, if that helps.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Delilah.
Yeah, of course. I think I'm gonna head out now because when I
Right,
need, but I
totally
might be
understood.
emailing you if I need anything else. So
Perfect.
just, yeah.
And then let us know if you write something up. that
Yeah,
gets, published.
yeah.
Cool.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Bye. Miriam, since you're still here and I'm still here, do you folks have, I don't know, I don't live in the valley. Can you hear me?
Hey,
Hi, just wanted to, since you're not in a small group and I'm not either, I just thought I would use this opportunity to follow up. I don't even know anything about the bike paths because I don't live in the area, but I just want to clarify that in my understanding, and you know more than I do, to be totally fair, you know more than I do about this, but everything is pretty conceptual and flexible, at least public facing right now. So there is influence, as you know, which is why you're here. But there is the city proposal. Well, I guess I should say not the city proposal, the city adopted proposal versus this other proposal. And I certainly know that the one that we're talking about, that Melanie presented on tonight, is definitely conceptual. Although I frankly know nothing about the difference between the bike paths on the north or south side of the river. But I do think you were probably talking about the city's piece because Melanie alluded to that. She said there's a problem with the bike path location and the city is feeling a little stuck on that. So that's not coming from this effort. That's coming from the effort that we have concerns and questions.
oh no, I never thought it was your effort.
Okay, got
No,
it. Okay,
it's just with Nithya and Bob's office, the first thing they did was not our district. Well, you know, you're very supportive of it. So it was frustrating even for the people left at CD6 trying to balance things. Oh,
sure.
you know,
yeah.
go contact a vacant office. It was very disingenuous.
No,
So
yeah, I mean, we're in a very wild situation right now with the city with so much corruption or accusations of corruption and so many vacancies and such a problem getting people represented. So I understand your frustration, and I know that, you know, now you're looking at a runoff in June, but I guess for you folks, it's just a couple more months.
well, and who knows how they will feel about supporting us, you know, it's
Totally, totally. Then you have to start all over, right?
well, you know, we just keep going ahead. We are representing people at the park that have been using that park for 30 years. It's a very simple solution, but you know, they want to, oh, we won't put that gate in. Well, you're going to use our parking, you know, it's just a bad plan when there are alternatives and already 2 bike paths. So we feel like we're being played with. We're not, we have a petition, 1,700. We have a Facebook,
wow.
we have a Facebook page of 1,700. We have been around since 2015. You know, it's, I couldn't find, you know, I heard about it at first, then it kind of died in the pandemic. I thought it died. Then I couldn't find anyone that knew about it. People that I found later were very involved with it, wouldn't tell me about it until I found it on the vision plan. I found the plan, and that was 2 months ago.
Oh yeah, that's about when they started reaching out, doing their outreach.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you know, when I saw that, you know, my head exploded, and you know, we've all been working. Oh, Betsy.
I just, you know, I so appreciate what Miriam has done with the dog park. But one of the things that stood out to me listening to, is it Miss Winters? What is her first
Melanie
name?
Winter.
Listening to Melanie regarding the sustainability was the emphasis, excuse me, on environmental sustainability. And that's an enormous concern. Not a single one of us is against a bike path or the bike path concept. Almost every one of us has been a biker or still is. We object to the sudden, without notice, switch of the bike path from the south side of the wash as it enters the dog park to the north side of the wash. So it then abuts the dog park. There's incursion on the dog park. There is safety issues. There are environmental issues. There are a lot of issues. In addition to that, I know that Melanie is talking about sustainability, and we have a lot of natural native flora and fauna that abut the riverway. And the flora and fauna will be removed. And because they're native and protected, they have to be relocated. It doesn't specify where. God knows where. In addition to that, we're going to lose up to 23 trees. And those are some of our stately old oak trees. And there's no replanting and there's no provision for any additional things to help and reduce our carbon dioxide that we've got in the environment. So it really is an issue of sustainability. It's an issue of protecting our native wildlife. And it's an issue of safety and health and welfare for both the dogs and the citizens that live in this almost 900,000 population community that utilize this one dog park.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
The only dog park for 3 council districts.
Yeah.
For 3.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
So those are the big issues. And I'm like a dog with raw meat on the environmental issue, the loss of part of the dog park, but especially, my good God in heaven, the loss of the trees and the safety issue. If you have bikers, picture this. If you have bikers and skateboarders running up and down next to dogs, that's like, that's like a Stephen King movie.
When there is the opposite side.
Yeah.
The one thing I would like to ask, if this is a private conversation.
It's kind of private, and I need to close the rooms in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay, I took a
Actually,
ride
you know
down-
what? I just realized this part is being recorded. Just so you know, this is actually being recorded. Just
All right, well, just as what I was told, I just won't mention his name. He's with the Army Corps, that there's a protected bird, the least Furio, that he said, I prefer to see that bike path on the south side because this bird is on the north. But when I look at the mitigation study on the actual motion, and I see that they say that there are nests on the south, not the north, where he's saying he is trying to make the cat people not leave the fixed cats there. He knows exactly where it is. But then when I tried to say, can you help me with letting me know exactly what your experience is? Of course, I couldn't put him on the spot, and he didn't want to offer that. But
right.
So I asked Muriel, and she said, Miriam, it's a done deal. You need to move on. I'm like, I never move on. I won't move on until the bulldozer comes. That's not my nature. But I think it's still worth looking into. I rode down there on my bike in that area, and it was one of the most beautiful areas down that river. I could see why bikers would like it. But our area, you have a dog park, and then you have baseball fields. It doesn't matter which side it's on, except it compromises us, So we need someone to come to the table and realize their folly. But I would love someone to actually look into that bird.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like somebody's wrong. Somebody's mistaken, right? Somebody has the wrong information.
Yeah, or there's the study that they used was maybe a couple of years ago, and now that nest is on the north, the south. But the north side is where you could mitigate it. The north side is where it has a lot of land. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I do know that there are times that people support us, and then all of a sudden the pressure is that they can't publicly.
Oh, well, yes, that happens as well.
So it would be nice for it to be double checked simply.
Yes, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Um,
Thanks for asking.
yes. Hi folks. So I'd love to hear if anybody wants to share. Did you learn anything? Did you get more frustrated? Did you get more hopeful? Did you get more inspired? Did you decide to quit? I don't know. Let me know what you came up with. AJ.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting the two in my group, and I think one of the focal points that we echoed mainly was transportation. So one of the pain points that we echoed is just the difficulty of trying to shift the culture to think a little less about using their cars for so many years for so many years now. There's been this propaganda that Southern California always and will be forever the car capital. Doesn't have to be a case. I even mentioned some of the pain points of the lack of planning over the Sepulveda Pass. And it was just mention of all these big developments that are coming in, but yet no supplement of resolving the ongoing transportation issue. I mean, we've seen some improvements, but still a lot more opportunity. So that's something that this group echoed.
Yes. I can tell you for sure our transportation committee agrees with you 100%. Pat, go ahead.
Okay, we got to rant a bit, and
Did that feel good?
yeah, I enjoy ranting sometimes. I usually am relatively quiet, but sometimes I get wound up. So Joanne and Kathy are I think we're kindred spirits. We are very upset about the rampant tree trimming going on. We discussed it. I suggested that it's not just the urban forestry and street services, but we need MOUs between NCs and a number of agencies, including the Bureau of Engineering, which is a black hole, street services. We've got brush growing up in the medians through the Sepulveda Basin. It's over my head now. Their plan is to wait till it dries and drop a match in it. We can do this better. And the problem is information sharing both ways. So the city gets it loud and clear that they're going to get a lot of blowback.
Right.
And, a few people chaining themselves to a tree, it'll get their attention.
Can I just chime in based on what because we had a conversation?
Yes.
Because it's connected, if John doesn't mind. So the urban forestry came and severely trimmed the trees on our adopted median that my neighborhood council pays $1,500 a month to have a landscape service. We planted those trees in the aughts. And I talked to Steve Dupre at Urban Forestry yesterday. He says, "Oh, we don't touch the median trees that you adopted." I said, "Well, you trimmed them all. You trimmed them all severely." So MOUs, I mean, don't really help because the city does whatever they want to do. So I have to tell you, I'm in a state of frustration about this. And meanwhile, LAUSD just severely trimmed all the trees at Grant High School, and I tried to intervene with that and spoke to the person in charge yesterday. And as we were speaking, the another half of the trimming happened yesterday. So it's like I feel like it's a waste of time. That's kind of where I'm reaching the point where if I can't, I'm going to the very top right now. I talked to the deputy mayor for sustainability yesterday in person. And if I can't get any help reporting all these problems to the very top people. And if they don't want to fix it, then, you know, I'm better spending my time elsewhere. So, but this is 8 years of work. You know, this started with tree trimming, my whole mission with trees. So, yes, it's reached a big frustration point. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I hope ranting helps a little. John, go
Thanks
ahead.
for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. We had a great meeting. Lionel and Polly, we immediately found common area about activities, whether it be city government, local government, etc. The fact that it's very frustrating when you have projects and you try to present a project, and it's usually not by yourself, but other people, that you sit there and talk and present, and they still go ahead with the project, irregardless of what the input is from them. We're a little frustrated across a lot of different Zoom meetings that we go to, and we hear very similar projects across Los Angeles, simply based on the fact they just let you, blah, 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 blah. Is he finished yet? No? Okay, finished, vote, done, it's over, put it behind. As an example about trees, you call the city and they say, no, we don't do trees. Like a building and safety, we don't do trees. It's very frustrating when you're trying to present something. And Lionel and Polly, we all agreed that there has to be something, and we've got high hopes that the new mayor is going to be putting some active activities in here to help correct this. Not sure just yet, only 100 days has really passed, but we're hoping to see some changes. And it's kind of funny, the three of us immediately agreed with the frustration that we have with interacting with the local city government.
So I'm getting the impression from the folks I've heard from that this was a bit of a ranting session for many of you. But I want to say that we are working on city charter reform. Chris, I'm going to move forward if that's okay. If that's okay, thank you. So there are ways, they're not easy ways, but there are ways that folks are working on, including us, to make sure that our voices are actually heard and acted on more than it seems is often the case. So I want to transition to our bylaws. I just posted them today, I think. Yes, today. So I totally get that folks might not have had an opportunity to check them out. We've been working on them for, gosh, I think more than a year, which is a little embarrassing. But we have a draft that we have approved as the board. It doesn't mean it's a done deal forever, because we always want your feedback, and we definitely think of it as a living document. So sorry, it's not, I gotta pull it up. I want to share it with you folks, but it's not in my available again. So hang in there with me. Okay, here it is. So I just want to walk you through it really fast, and as always, welcome your feedback. We probably won't have a lot of time for it today, but you can email me and I will make sure to share that with the board, and this will be an ongoing conversation, but we feel pretty good about it. So frankly, we've been working on it so long that I actually don't remember all the changes since the version we started working on, but I'll tell you the big ones that we're aware of. Basically, Article 3, under B, neighborhood councils without a representative will not be considered members. This is something we have discussed with you, so this is just a reminder. This is really for me and bookkeeping. Right now, we have there are like 20 of us or so now. Right now, on paper, there are like 73 of us. In real life, there are probably about 50, I'm going to say, active representatives, but not 73. And I would like to cut those 73 and make it easier for folks to join. You just have to get a representative to join. But if you don't have an active representative, you are not considered a member. So that will just make things, it will make us look smaller, but it will make neighborhood councils more motivated, I hope, to get an active representative. And I think it will certainly make things easier for me. Article 4, what is that one? Okay, this is really about how we've changed over the past year or so. We've changed, we vote a lot more like we did tonight. We do this a lot more now. So I think we're getting pretty comfortable with it. We still have some kinks to work out, I think, but we are, I think we're getting better at it, and to be continued, and as always, welcome your feedback. Article 5, what is that? Oh, this is just basically, this isn't terribly different. This is wait, did I confuse Article 4 and 5? No. No, okay, maybe I am, but basically this is all about how we vote and how it works, and I think a lot of you are comfortable with that now. Oh, here are some big things we've done. We are trying to professionalize, and we are working toward becoming a nonprofit. Right now, we are not a nonprofit. We have to have a fiscal sponsor, which is sometimes great and sometimes not great. So we've done a few things to expedite that. I am now the executive director, which Laura Mack, many of you remember, used to be. We haven't had one since then. And Chris Ahuja, who has agreed to be the chair. And it's a little confusing to some why we have an executive director and a chair, but that's to make sure that the interests of the organization are protected. And to make sure to avoid any, or manage, I guess I should say, any of conflicts of interest, because conflicts of interest happen. But if you have those two roles, you are better able to manage it. And this also helps set us up for applying to become a nonprofit, because you need certain things on your board in order to do that. The committees, we didn't make big changes here. The one thing, this is sort of funny, I'll just tell you this is what was hanging us up for a minute. We used to say, and I don't know that this was in our recent approved ones, but this is in the draft for a year or so. Because this is what we do in our committee guidelines, which we'll have to modify. We say that the way we define stakeholder is the way Dunn defines stakeholder. I think there's so much antipathy about Dunn now that people did not want Dunn mentioned in the bylaws. So I found a workaround. I borrowed this from the Tarzana Neighborhood Council. So thank you, Tarzana. And just referred to the LA Administrative Code's definition, which is what Dunn uses and which is what neighborhood councils use. So nothing's changed in terms of how we do that. We are just avoiding the use of the term done, which I think will make people happier. I think we have like 2 minutes for questions, comments, feedback. If there's more, you can once again email us and we'll keep this conversation going. Polly.
Yes, I wanted to ask you to repeat what you said about the people who can come to the meeting. That I didn't quite catch it. Do you have to be a representative of your neighborhood committee?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
You're talking about this meeting or committee meetings or either?
What were you saying that you changed in the very beginning? It was the very first paragraph that you said you changed.
Didn't change anything about who can come to a meeting. Didn't change anything about that. Anybody, this meeting, anybody in the world can come to this meeting.
Okay. All right, and then the other thing is just a quick question about being a nonprofit, that right now, aren't you part of the neighborhood committee structure set up by the city of Los Angeles?
No.
Well, as Glenn, I learned this stuff from Glenn, we are mentioned, alliances are mentioned in the city charter. And I have a City of LA email address. And I am mentioned on a website, and that's it.
So you're not part of the neighborhood council, like between us and our city council members, there's supposed to be the neighborhood councils, and there's 99 of them, and we all belong to different neighborhood councils, and there are intermediary to our council members. I thought that was the concept. But we're this.
Well, they are, yes, but we aren't.
But you aren't. Ah,
Does that
okay.
help?
And the
I mean, I
benefit
do
of
think of
being,
us as an intermediary. I mean, one of the things that I really want us to do, and that I actually think we do not terribly, is serve as a liaison between residents and the city. Like, we're another channel of communication, if that helps. But that's all, extra structure, if that.
and being a nonprofit would allow you to apply for grants.
Without going through a fiscal sponsor, exactly.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Glenn.
Regarding the stakeholder definition, so it's gone through multiple iterations over the years. And yes, it is a vote of city council, it is an ordinance, and yes, it does end up in the administrative code. But the current iteration, they tried to fix the problems with the last one, and then now they've created more of them. So, you know, I don't know that this group, I mean, you certainly can refer to it, but just know it probably, if history is any guide, it'll probably change again, and you know, just be aware of that. Especially the part about community interest stakeholders. So
yes,
you're not obligated to take what they do, but it's certainly no one can criticize as long as it's something the city council voted for. The one thing
let me just chime in on that. Yes, I noticed that when I looked up the administrative code, it was clearly awkward. It's like when you can tell that something was written by committee, you know, that joke. It was awkward. So yes, I totally get what you're saying. And there was some discussion among the board about why do we have to follow what the city says. And I will say I think I'm the one who maybe felt the most strongly that we should. I mean, we are in the system, we're choosing to be in the system, but my thinking was the city has done so much work on the definition of a stakeholder. It is complicated, it is a pain in the butt. They have done a great job, in my opinion, just my opinion, being inclusive. I love the fact that you don't have to be a citizen. You can be an undocumented resident and you can still vote in the neighborhood council system. So I think they've done a ton of work. It's not perfect. It doesn't make everybody happy, but I think it makes sense for us to be aligned with it because neighborhood councils are aligned with it. And because somebody else has done the work. But yes, it's going to be in flux for sure.
Okay, so I wasn't arguing for or against, I just wanted to say that. So,
yeah,
because we all have to live, all neighborhood councils have it put into our bylaws.
Yes.
All of us have to the same since city council.
I did that. That's what I learned, confirmed this week. Yes.
So the other thing, the more important thing I just wanted to say is so alliances are kind of in this weird neverland. And the immediate past general manager kind of helped put it there because she didn't want to deal with it. But you're right, the former general manager before her, you know, felt alliances were important. She did what you said, put it on the website, recognized them. And so you can't have it both ways. And so now that immediate past general manager is gone, you know, if the department did recognize some alliances, many alliances, that's why they're on the webpage. If they didn't recognize them, they wouldn't be on the webpage. On the other hand, it is clear that the regulatory authority, the normal, like Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, they have no authority over alliances. So that's good because number one, you're not under the Brown Act, which means we can have virtual meetings. The bad is you can't file community impact statements, but you don't have to worry about violating the Brown Act by communicating with a majority of board members or, you know, all of them or whatever. So it does give the alliances the ability to do, and also to communicate regarding state and federal laws, other levels of government. Neighborhood councils can't do that. Neighborhood councils are restricted by the city charter that we can only communicate and advise the city, generic big city departments, mayor, city council, etc. So alliances allow us, the neighborhood councils, to kind of get around, if you will, that restriction with regards to communicating issues that are important to our stakeholders, our neighborhood councils, whatever, that maybe the neighborhood councils can't do. So
okay, well, let me actually speak to that one, and then I am going to cut it off and just move on to our committee report backs, which will touch on some of this stuff. I think once again, might be one of the things I feel most strongly about, but there has been probably a fuzzy exception or two over the years, but really the vast majority of the time we try to stick to city issues. And there are a couple at least reasons for that. One is capacity. There is plenty going on at the city level. We can't do everything at the city level. Why take on other stuff? Another is you folks are restricted. So it doesn't make sense if we're here to support you. That's really what the point of the alliance is. It doesn't make sense, in my opinion, for us to be doing other stuff when it won't be really supporting your work because you can't. I mean, there's nothing to Glenn's point. We could change that. I would advocate very strongly against changing that, but that's how we work today. Joanne, is it okay if we move on?
Yeah, I just have some questions about the representatives and also.
Oh, go ahead then. Go ahead. Well, how about you ask while I'm pulling up our slides, which are also.
Yeah, the way we vote, there's been some questions about do we hear a different side, and then who's a member, just because they can't get a volunteer to come, or even just give you an email address, which I think should be enough. They don't have to come to a meeting. It seems to me that it's kind of not awkward it's awkward to tell people they're no longer a member of NCSA. So I would really encourage to try to get people to at least find somebody willing to give their email address and say,
of course.
Yeah.
Trust me. Trust me, that's what I want.
No, I know you do. I know you do.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
But I am telling you, I have people who are listed on our website whose email addresses don't work and who I've never met. That's the stuff I'm talking about. So yeah, we'll probably
go to the president of those neighborhood councils and say.
Sure, and I have.
Okay.
In many, or I don't know, I've lost track. It's been too many years, but in many times I have.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we're gonna, we haven't done this yet, so this might be an area where we have to kind of tweak our thinking as we get into it, but we'll find out. And now I get to, so I'm actually frankly very excited. But that's a great point. Yes. Okay, so I just want to do some report backs on our committees. I am the current chair of the advocacy committee, but I realize I should tell you, I don't want to be the chair of the advocacy committee. So if somebody else wants to, you are welcome to step up and express your interest. We have a lot going on. We've got the draft wildlife ordinance is still stuck, and so we're grumpy about that. Sepulveda Basin, we just voted on tonight. I am behind on two things, and I must apologize to Joanne and the Trees Committee and to the Advocacy Committee, because there are two things I'm going to ask you folks to be voting on via email soon, and I just haven't had or taken the time to do it. And that is on the virtual meeting question, which we all support autonomy of neighborhood councils. I say we all, I say in the advocacy committee, we all support, and I assume you folks do. So we thought we could do that via email. And then I don't even remember what Joanne's motion was, but I will run that by you folks in the near future for a vote. I found out last weekend that the city council committees are now prohibiting phone-in public comment, which really pissed me off. So I spent a week trying to reach somebody in Krikorian's office. I used to have a very good contact there, but he had just left. So I'm sort of rebuilding. Aaron, yes.
Yeah, Aaron went to work for Lindsay Horvath.
I know. I just found out when I texted him last weekend. I'm like, your email bounced. What's up, dude? So he referred me to somebody, but it's been a little bumpy. So I'm going to talk to somebody tomorrow, but I did get an email today saying, I'm not looking at it right now, but I think the gist was there were concerns about interpretation, and I think maybe concerns about, I forget what the other thing was, but they're looking for solutions. So it doesn't sound like we're stuck in this place. So I am cautiously optimistic that we will hear something more encouraging soon.
This is in public comment?
Yes.
And
I think that's, go ahead.
It's my council office, so who did they send you to?
Steve Ferguson and also Madeline, I forget her last name.
Okay, I
But
don't
I'm
know.
meeting with Steve tomorrow.
Okay, good.
I think Steve and Madeline maybe split up Aaron's portfolio, or Steve certainly has a lot of it. Yeah, no, this is not sustainability specific, but I was referred to him. Charter reform, that's what, John, if you're still there, I can't see folks, but this is one of the things that city charter, when I say charter reform, I should say city charter reform. We are thinking about increasing the size of city council. I personally don't know if that's a great idea, but there are lots of good arguments for it. We are talking about changing how we do redistricting, and these are ways to get us better represented because we often don't feel like we are. Case in point, De Leon, we're not doing anything about it. I'm still mad, so I just leave it on this list because it makes me feel better. LA 28 Sustainability Working Group, I wanted to make sure, we did talk about that earlier, but that is, we had our first meeting. And so as we, over the next, I guess, several years, we will be meeting quarterly, and it is my job to sort of, in my mind at least, be the liaison between you folks and them and make sure that our concerns are conveyed to them. So we'll see how that goes. AstroTurf, Melanie, if you're still here, in our last advocacy meeting, you put something in the chat about how Parks and Rec, or Rec and Parks, whatever, is promoting AstroTurf.
Yeah.
And I did not know that, and I'm so horrified. We've been sort of working on AstroTurf, and now I'm like really bothered. So we'll be talking about that I hope at our next meeting. Also, we will be bringing a vote to you on democracy vouchers in the near future. Our advocacy committee did vote to support them. And next meeting, I know many of your neighborhood councils have already supported the municipal lobbying ordinance. There's lots of discussion going on that. Jamie York, I think, is going to come to our next meeting, May 7th. You're all invited. Anybody's invited, really. And we can maybe take a position on that because it's not too late, because that's another one that's really in flux. Okay, energy, AJ.
Thank you, Lisa. So the first point that we have an update on is there's
Actually,
been
AJ,
ongoing.
I'm sorry. Can you introduce yourself first, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
AJ from the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council and co-chair of the Energy Committee. So going into my first update, there's been ongoing conversations about the Murphy drill site. For those of you who are unaware, there was basically some opposition that came back from the oil companies where basically they're threatening now to sue the city of Los Angeles. So we're now in the works of a letter to take a position. So more to come on that, which is being discussed among our committee. We have also organized a tour for the Vista Hermosa oil drilling site. And that date is set for May 20th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and signups are still open. One of the other ongoing conversations that we're having is how there's continuous conversations on electrification, and those who make the decision to be a part of the solution for electrification, whether it's simply changing out their stove from gas to electric, basically being penalized and paying more for it. So we're continuing ongoing conversations of, what we could do to potentially continue to advocate against that. And then in addition, we're working on an induction stove demonstration workshop. So I managed to finally find a contact from a nonprofit organization called Meals in Motion. So we're actually in the planning stages, and that's going to be discussed at our next committee meeting. And as a reminder, our committee meetings are every third Thursday at 7 p.m.
Every third Tuesday.
Every third Tuesday, sorry.
And that could change in the near future, but that's probably when we meet now, and we'll update our website if it changes. Thank you, AJ. That was great. Transportation, Muriel.
Hi, everyone. Usually we're like the first committee meeting for every beginning of the month. So we had our meeting April 6th on Thursday. It's usually every Thursday, the first Thursday of the month, at 7 p.m. Alex, oh goodness gracious, Alex from Waymo came to present on Waymo, which is a self-driving company slash rideshare. They have different types of technologies such that there would be less, like I guess like less statistical percentage of like possible crashes, but they're still looking into the technology, and they are looking to broaden out to like Los Angeles, but not yet. There's also some talk about bicycle infrastructure in San Fernando Valley by Lionel. We talked a little bit about the Metro Visionary Seed Grant, and also a little bit about the Flow Boulevard BRT. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne.
Yes, the Trees Committee generally meets bi-monthly. We usually meet on the last Saturday, but that's Memorial Day weekend in May. So I'm just going to see whether it's a good idea to either make it sooner or go into June. We have been talking about doing some guidelines for developers and planning and land use committees, but I have to tell you that given what's been going on with the site plan review waiver, it's not looking good. I did talk to the deputy mayor for sustainability yesterday about trying to do some incentives for leaving trees or leaving space for trees, kind of like density bonuses. So we might get into that at that meeting. And then the recording of the last meeting, we had a really great meeting at our March meeting, and I haven't had a chance to put it up. We did work on the city tree inventory, and we worked on a bunch of other stuff before that, and it's an interesting meeting, and I'll send out an email when I have it up to all the people on my mailing list for the Trees Committee. And if you'd like to be on it, just shoot me an email at trees@ncsa.la and I'll add you on. It's good if you tell me what part of the city you hail from. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Joanne. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that we have a launch of this year's Climate Equity LA series. We had the first meeting, I guess, a few weeks ago, and the next one is coming up in, I guess, a couple weeks or a week or two. And it is on community-driven climate resilience. So it's looking, if I understand correctly, I actually don't know who's going to be speaking, but my understanding is that it's going to be looking at hyperlocal efforts to do this. So, and the resilience piece is sort of, in my mind, is sort of the other side of the coin from sustainability, because we know that we did not do enough quickly enough. So we are, having crazier weather, having hotter weather, having more floods and more droughts, blah, 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 more hurricanes, all that stuff, more tornadoes. So what do we do about that? And we in LA are going to have to figure out a lot, especially regarding the heat and fires, as we know. So that should be interesting. You can go to climateforla.org to find out more and to RSVP. And we actually need to recruit. I think we've contracted to recruit a certain number of participants each time. So if you do, let me know. I'm not gonna get into the details of that now because it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but just let me know if you can or if you remember, and that will be helpful. And I think this should be very, very interesting. Okay. I have a couple other announcements, but I'm kind of tired of talking, so does anybody else have other announcements?
Lisa, is there any way for when we register for it to be through a link that gives you NCSA credit for?
I thought about that recently. That's a great point. That is not how they do it.
Okay.
And I don't know why that's not how they do it.
Got it. Okay.
Great question. Don't have the answer. Thank
Okay.
you. Glenn,
Yes, everyone who's a neighborhood council person probably got an email, but if you're not, Mayor Bass is having her State of the City, her first one, tomorrow. And you can watch it live on Channel 35, Facebook, and something else. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, check that out if you're interested. Sometimes this is in advance of her launching the new city budget that she will be doing by April 20th, her first. So sometimes the mayors historically give a heads up, in terms of what their priorities are in the State of the City presentation, before the budget's actually released. And then April 20th, you'll be able to view the budget, choose your favorite departments, and see what's proposed. So anyway, State of the City is on Monday, and release of the budget is typically on the 20th. That's the legal deadline, but they could do it early if they wanted to.
What time, Glenn?
I think it's at 5:30, but if someone else has that right in front of them, they could.
It's 5:30.
Okay.
okay, thank you. I was gonna ask the same thing. A couple other announcements from us. I gotta find them. One is we have a couple tabling opportunities for Earth Day in case you're interested. One is with the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council, and the other one is at West LA College, I believe, through an organization I don't know very much about, but they're connected to Andrea Leon Grossman, who has been with Food and Water Watch and Azul. So that makes me a fan. If you've been just sitting around wondering what you're going to do on Earth Day and just hoping you could table for the NCSA, then I have a solution for you. So let me know, but you have to let me know tomorrow because I'm leaving town Tuesday. I will not be here, which is why we can't table, one of the reasons we can't table. And you won't be able to get the stuff to table if I'm not here. That will be a little more challenging. So there's that. The other thing is, as a reminder, we're doing something with Westwood Greenway, which is our current primary fiscal sponsor, on May 13th. It's going to be, Charles isn't here to help describe it, but we tried this once last fall and it did not work very well. So we're going to try again. We're going to go there. It's off the Expo line, and we're going to do it with Surfrider Foundation, and we're going to spruce up the place. Probably do a lot of like cleanup stuff, but I don't actually know what the work will be. And this is one of the things
I thought we were going to be removing invasive species, right? Like that was one of the things.
Good point. Yeah, you were probably there. Were you? Yeah.
I was.
That
Yeah,
sounds
I
right.
was doing.
Okay, fair enough. That's one of the things we would be doing. Thank you, Mira. That's very helpful. Removing invasive species, I'm sure will be on the list. Oh, Pat, you thought it worked great. I think we were thinking, I wasn't there. I had a family emergency, but we wanted more people.
I was there. I got the best hints about plants to put in like our fire station gardens and stuff. It was wonderful.
Well, so I think, that's a great point. So I'm sure
And I'll
Charles,
be there again.
Charles is super knowledgeable, so I'm sure he gave, and I should have said this, it's also going to be a tour. And if you haven't been, it's really cool and super. If you are feeling like you've been ranting too much and want to be inspired a little more, this is a fun place to go and get inspired. But I think the tour part, I'm sure worked great. The part that didn't work great was the working after the tour part.
I had to go somewhere else, and
Well, everybody did. So that's what happened. See, everybody.
Well, you know,
Right. That's what happened.
We're pulling weeds everywhere. So
Hey, I get it. I wasn't there, so trust me, I'm not throwing any stones. And Chris wasn't wearing the right shoes, so he can't throw any stones. So it really, we had some trouble. So we're gonna try again, May 13th, and our regular meeting time is usually with Mother's Day, so I think we might, I haven't figured out what we're doing for May, but it might just be this. More to come on that, but it will not be the second Sunday of the month. Kathy, did you want to say more, or did you? Okay, you're good.
Which park is that, Lisa?
What'd you say?
Which park is that?
It's called Westwood Greenway. Actually, now they've changed the name. It's like Paul Corret's something, which was a whole other story. But it's was it the Rancho Park stop? I don't know that area.
Yeah,
very-
it's the Rancho Park stop. It's like
Okay.
right, yeah.
So it is literally on the stop. So for Eunice, since you're downtown, that would be actually really easy.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I've seen it.
Okay.
It's between Overland and Westwood, along the expo line.
And it is really cool, and we do learn a lot, and Charles will, I'm sure, will be providing a tour, and he is super knowledgeable. Oh, you know, one thing, did I forget to say? Oh, one thing when I was talking about the bylaws, I think I might have forgotten to mention this. Scott, did I say that Scott Epstein stepped down from the board?
No.
Okay,
No.
so he did, and we were already a little lean and mean, so we are recruiting for board members again. You can find it on our website under Get Involved, or we'll put it in our next email. But stay posted for that if you're interested, or if you know somebody who might be interested. We do need to get our numbers up a smidgen. Let's see. I guess that's it for me.
I'm gonna
I
drop-
just realized we're 5 minutes over, so we really
I'm going to
gotta-
drop something in the chat for those of you who are interested in the conversations coming up around council expansion. And there's like 4 community meetings that somebody put in the chat earlier. It might have been before the break, but there's also a website up that everybody can look at with lots and lots of resources. And it's a very good website. So if you're interested in the pros, cons, and process of potential council expansion, this is a new website that's just been launched with tons of resources for you if you want to get engaged.
Yes, thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm done. Any last things? All right, thank you, guys. Happy
Thank
evening.
you,
and,
Lisa.
we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Hey,
Carol.
thank you, Lisa.
Thank you,
Nice
everybody.
meeting you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Oh. Sorry, Lisa, I had internet connectivity issues. So anyway, I'm out. Thanks for hosting.
You're good? Okay, thank you.
right.
And Lionel, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of private. I just want to private.
Just remembered you called me, but you didn't leave a message, did you?
No, I was
Okay,
late.
I'm terrible at, I don't always notice when I have messages, so okay, yeah. Well, do you want to just call me?
Oh, well, it's kind of, it's not, it's kind of private.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you want to just call me?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay,
Okay.
just call
Good
me right
night.
now.
Okay.
Okay, bye.